We can get started. Thanks to everyone who came today. Welcome to this TOR Technical Assistance webinar. My name is Jeff Ladolter, and before I get to Shirley and Colin, I just want to say this series is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. We are part of the ATTC network, which includes 10 regional centers, 5 international centers, Network Coordinating Office, and the National Hispanic and Latino ATTC. We've updated our policies on CEUs, actually due to quarantine and social distancing, so continuing education units are currently free. For our webinars going forward, you only need to reply to the email that you'll receive as a follow-up, which typically comes in a few days. After this, you'll find a link to our GPRA survey, or GIPRA survey. It will only take a few minutes, and we'd really appreciate getting your feedback for this webinar. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Shirley Kane, who can provide introductions and, I think, offer an opening blessing.
Okay. Hey, good, Jeff, for the opportunity to do this today. I can't see myself on the web. Am I on?
I think we only have one camera at a time.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Just leave them on. I'm good. So I'll just say the prayer right now, and then I'll introduce Colin. Gishimanidu, Mashkasi, Koyashini Kazo, Mikazito dem, Miskagami Wizaga, Ganin, Indunjaba. Gishimanidu, Widokawishin, Anishinabeg, Gishimanidu, Widokawishin, Ninijani Sug, Gishimanidu, Widokawishin, Ambenujig, Gishimanidu. I ask for prayers for all of our people in a kind and humble way, Gishimanidu. Special prayers for Mother Earth and all that she does to nurture us and to sustain us. Miigwech for all that Mother Earth gives us. And I say prayers for our current generations and our future generations, that they will have a Mother Earth to live on that will be healthy. I pray for our water in a good way, Gishimanidu, that we have good water now and for future generations to sustain all of our people in a good way. I say miigwech Gishimandu for the beautiful powwow that we had yesterday at Little Earth. It just gave me renewed hope, and it gave everybody a chance to get together and still be socially distant and have a good time. And it's the way of our people, and we need that time together to rebond and to reconnect and to reattach. That is so important for our people, Gishimanidu, and miigwech for that opportunity. And miigwech for all of our ceremonies that we can go to and that we can participate in. Miigwech for those beautiful opportunities and for this beautiful way of life, Gishimanidu. And I say miigwech to our sponsors, the ATTC, miigwech to Jeff and Kate and Anna Helena and Matt and all the other people that are helping with this, and for all of our webinars and our sponsors that we have. And I say prayers and miigwech to Pam and to Joanne and to all of our partners at JBS and at other agencies. Miigwech for all those wonderful people that support us in a good way, Gishimanidu. I ask for special prayers for anybody who is sick in any way, whether it's the COVID or it's any other disease. And I say prayers again for my good friend Emma and her man as he's preparing to walk on, Gishimanidu, and I say prayers for her in a kind and humble way, that she has the strength that I know you'll give her to help him and support him in a good way. And I say prayers for all the people who are sick in any way, and special prayers for our families who are sick from addiction and also have mental health illnesses that we can use to help them, that give us the recovery and the services that our communities need. Miigwech for Colin coming and bless him and his family and his grandma that led the way back when. Miigwech for all of our good people, Gishimanidu. and then we magana.
Oh.
Okay, so what I'll do next is I'll introduce Colin. I just have to say before I introduce him, I'm always just so like inspired by him. He's like a generation or two away from me, younger than me, but he teaches me something new every time he talks and presents. And I feel really blessed and honored to have him do this again for us. When we did it the first time, there was some connectivity issues, and I wanted this one to be no connectivity issues, and that everything he says would be clear and that everybody could hear him. So miigwech for Jeff doing this again, and Kate and Colin. Colin is a co-founder of Sober Squad, and he's a member of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and he works there as a grant specialist. He's been a community service leader, DNR land maintenance administrator, culture grounds maintenance keeper. He's going to school at Central Lakes College, working on his bachelor's degree, and he's been on the dean's list. And he's had training in Wildland Fire Academy, Wellbriety Facilitator, Bland in Leadership, Minnesota Recovery as a recovery coach, and a certification as a tribal admin and governance. He's presented at the Minnesota Indian Institute on Alcohol and Drugs Studies, that's called MAIDS, and the Minnesota Association of Resources for Recovery and Chemical Health, and that's called MARCH. So I give you Colin Cash.
Miigwech for that beautiful introduction, Shirley. I love you and I appreciate you, and thank you for those beautiful words. They're humbling. And I'll just start off with my introduction. Ho Buju, Ni Tamigabo Indigenikas, Magizi Dudame, Mrs. Zaigani and Dunjaba. That means first one standing. Eagle Clan from Mille Lacs, Ojibwe. And my social security name is Colin Cash. And so I'm just gonna dive right in. And I want to apologize ahead of time. Like I just a person who cares about my community. I love my people. And my lens that I see everything through is always through a tribal member first. And so being a part of a tribe, Mille Lacs Band here, that's never going to go away. And so everything I do or I try to do for my tribe and my people and my kids, and that's kind of how this whole thing started. And so like forgive me if some of the jargon or the language is outdated or uneducated, but I think you'll like what the presentation is going to bring. So I'm just going to dive right in. So I am the co-founder of Sober Squad, and one of the main philosophies that we have is to empower and support individuals in recovery to build healthier communities. And I don't know how that came about, but that's been our philosophy and our mindset through everything that we do from the very beginning. That's been our thing. And so like I'll go through the presentation and kind of talk about how it came to the way it is. And so my name is Colin Cash, and I was wishing that Gary and Randall can be here, but Randall's not feeling too well, and Gary's working outside of the area, and he wouldn't be able to be here till 2. So I'm Colin Cash, and kind of like how we kind of do our introduction is an idea born from a narrative, nurtured with the help of the community, and shared action with an idea powerful enough to dent the world. And I never envisioned that the work that we started here in the community would ever grow or amount to anything. It was just like, how can we help, what's going on, and it's taken off now, and it's gone from, so it started here in Mille Lacs, and right now there's 26 different chapters in 5 different states, and about 20 of them are on other reservations. So, yeah, so it's okay, so what brought this about was back in July of 2016, Minnesota is a public law 280 state, which states that our jurisdiction from our tribal officers has to come from the county that we reside in. So our officers get sworn in through the county to investigate and arrest, and this agreement has been in place since the inception or the beginning of Mille Lacs Band, and and they've always renewed it. They've always renewed this Joint Powers Agreement. And in July of 2016, at one of the peaks of the opiate epidemic, that was just totally plagued the nation, and our communities. Like, reservations seem to be disproportionately, you know what I mean, statistically speaking, reservations are represented all across the spectrum on all the stuff. And so at the height of this opiate epidemic, our 32 officers lost their power to investigate and arrest people, and that just created some really dangerous social norms that happened in the community, and that triggered a lot of events that started happening here in Mille Lacs. And if you talk to people from Mille Lacs here, that was a very traumatic time for our community when the Joint Powers Agreement got pulled. And so the very first day, I think it was the first day or second day of the Joint Powers Agreement getting pulled, an outside officer patrolling the area here now because he had to, ended up shooting and killing a 22-year-old kid here. And not to say that it wasn't justified or anything like that, but you get a foreign person on a reservation that probably hears stories about what it's like, so he's coming into the situation nervous already. And so their training kicks in, and so the second day with the No Joint Powers Agreement, there was a fatal police shooting of a 22-year-old kid. And that stringed a lot of overdose deaths in my community. Like, so my tribe gets a monthly per cap the first Thursday of every month, and there's some economic development services or economic value to the area here that the casino brings in for people to work and other stuff like that. But with HUD housing and all these programs and stuff like that, so people can not work and get services and then get their per cap and spend it all on drugs and alcohol without a thought in the world, you know. And so spending $933 a month on drugs in a community of 1,400 here in District 1, it can create a hostile recovery environment. And that's kind of like what the community was at that time. And so also, I just got back from Sundance, so I was fasting and not eating for 4 days. So, and I just got back yesterday, so my mental capacity may not be 100%. So, but so anyway, so that's triggered when they pulled the Joint Powers Agreement. There was 24 overdose deaths in my community within that span of 2 years where there was no Joint Powers Agreement, and those were just the deaths. That's not even incorporating the near-death experiences and all this stuff. And this was before there was an active MAT program, needle exchange. You know, like it was a very trying time for our community. And gang members from nearby, bigger, larger cities like Minneapolis and Chicago started coming in because they knew they got money every month from the casino here. So people started coming in the first Thursday of all these major drug and gang organizations started coming in the first Thursday of every month and setting up right in the parking lot and right out in the open, just selling drugs, like right outside the bank, right outside the store. You know, elders were starting to get afraid to come out, and you were hearing all this about this elder abuse and people getting taken advantage of, and it just, and the community just took really a dark turn almost immediately when the Joint Powers Agreement got pulled. And there was no cops around to tribal officers that knew the community, knew the area, could do anything about it. It was like you handcuffed our cops, and now what used to be 32 officers patrolling the area here, it's now the county hired on, I think they hired on two more full-time cops on top of the whatever they had before to patrol the entire county. So gang members and the activity that happened in my community was really bad, and there was a homicide. There was 2 homicides that happened during that time. One of them was drug related, and there's this really awesome tool here that I got where you can look at the data and statistics of overdose deaths, and you can kind of see where reservations are and how much the opiate epidemic has been a detriment to our people. And so this is the address, web address on there, and so the social norms in the community, it was a really bad time. It was really difficult, and there was no police to do anything about it, and so that laid the ground game for something had to happen, you know, like and so that created the breaking point for the community. You know, there was the termination of the Joint Powers Agreement, fatal police shooting, 2 homicides, 25 overdose deaths in 24 months, and not to account the major drug organizations that would come sit out in the parking lot in front of the bank waiting for people to get their check and come out and buy drugs, and so it's difficult to explain what the community was like back then. And in July of 2016, I was maybe 6 months into my own journey of recovery when all of this started happening. And so when all of this started happening, you know, I want to try to encourage people to look objectively at the future and try to envision what does a safe and happy, healthy community look like to you. And I took a picture up there of the healing forest of the white bison and the Wellbrady movement. They have a really beautiful diagram up there of a healing forest. And one of the things that he talks about is, let's say this tree is growing up in an unhealthy forest, and it's not getting the nourishment and the sun and everything that it needs because of the forest is just really unhealthy. So you take that tree out by its roots and you put it in some healthy soil, and you nurture it, and you put it in this healthy place for 30 days, and it begins to grow and develop and strive. But then you pull it back out of that healthy soil, and then you put it back into that unhealthy forest again, where it's not getting the nurturement and the sun and everything that it needs to grow and to develop, you know. And so and so, like, looking at it from that perspective, you know, it really helped me to be objective about what's the future gonna look like. And so, like, there's another quote I found online that I really liked, and it says, "The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, the realist adjusts the sails." You know, and that's by William Ward, and I really love that quote, because it's going to kind of come into play later about the many different pathways that what it takes for a community that was in dire circumstances like mine was to come out of that. And so with the termination of the Joint Powers Agreement and what was going on in the community, and there was no police around to call or anything like that, one of the most beautiful things that happened with us Anishinaabe people is we are a tribe, and in the darkest times we will come together, and that's kind of like how this how Sober Squad started watching all of this go on in the community. I'm 6 months clean into my recovery at that time, and I remember I was hosting 3 support groups a week here on my reservation, and nobody was showing up. Nobody was showing up to the Wellbriety meeting, the AA meeting, the NA meeting, and I would go to Sweat every Thursday, and nobody was showing up. Like once in a while, somebody would show up, maybe having me sign their slip, proving they were there, and then I would never see them again. And during this time, I would reach out to people when they would post something on social media about I just got out of treatment, or I want to go to treatment, I want to Rule 25, I'm sick of this and doing this, because I'm friends with everybody in my community. So when I would recognize people talking, using that change talk, I would reach out to them and be like, hey, this is going on this day, this is going on this day, this is this, and I would say in the early stages, the odds or data for success was like 1 out of every 75 people. So 75 people I would drive the detox, get an assessment for, bring them to a meeting. Out of them 75, 1 person would come and start their journey in recovery and find their path. And so that first year, I'm hosting 3 support groups a week, and nobody's showing up, and I would sit there for an hour every 3 days a week for an hour, and sometimes nobody would show up, just sitting there waiting for these people to show up, and my only people that I talked to was elders. Like it was just this young dude hanging out with a bunch of elders, and to be honest, I was getting lonely. I was lonely, and I wanted some people to hang out with, to go do fun stuff, and don't get me wrong, the elders are awesome, and I don't mind sitting around playing the moccasin game or doing sweat lodge and stuff like that. But like I wanted to do fellowship and to do all this fun, exciting stuff now that I'm new in recovery. And so I was really lonely that first year. And that first year I waited a whole year to get into a relationship. So that whole first year, it's just it was just a lot of frustration. And I remember at the time, hindsight 2020, but I remember at the time I was just like, why am I doing this? Why am I trying so hard? Why am I dedicating myself to do all this work and nothing's happening and blah, 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 blah. And looking back at it now, this was before Sober Squad, and before there was amount of people. There was nobody my age in recovery or even a recovery community to speak of, and I was lonely. There was nobody for me to hang out because I knew I couldn't hang out with people that were in active use and so it was a really tough time. But one thing about that frustration during all that time was that I managed to hold on to my recovery during that whole first year, and there was a lot of learning that I had to take place in that first year about recovery, and so started drawing inspiration and learning about everything that had already taken place. So my community's in some dire circumstances. So what kind of influences can I draw upon to help my community? And everybody knows about the American Indian movement and how they spread across the nation and what they stood for. And then there was a very inspiring story about the honor of all, the story of Alkali Lake. I would encourage anybody that's on this webinar to watch that movie, to check it out. There was up in Canada, there was a reservation with a 90% alcoholic rate that was going on, and a small group of people got sober or into recovery, and then one of them got elected as chief, and they all worked together and changed a lot of policy and everything like that to where they nearly zeroed out the alcoholic rate, and so like that was a very inspiring story to draw to draw influence from. And then I went to Standing Rock in 2016 too, and watching like the 500 or 400 tribes come together out in Standing Rock, that was moving to me. That was powerful, and watching us band together was inspiring, and then there was a little grassroots group that started down in Minneapolis that was called Natives Against Heroin, and they would go into the projects or the worst parts of Minneapolis, and they would go and they would call out drug dealers, and they would drum and dance right in these areas, and bringing that medicine in there. And I remember the first time I went and spoke at one of the meetings in the projects down there, I was scared. I was early in recovery, and I was scared, and I'm sitting in this I know to be dangerous area of Minneapolis, one of the most dangerous areas in Minneapolis, and here I am singing, telling my story. And so I was moved that these guys were standing up to drug dealers. They would bring the drum out in front of the drug dealer's house, and they would sing and tell them that they loved them, but they didn't want them hurting the community, and that was powerful. That was powerful. And then learning about the history and the 12 steps and programs like that, and learning about Alcoholics Anonymous, these were all influences that come to play later on. And so that I remember that first year praying every day for my community in Mille Lacs, because my people were dying. Like I was elders afraid to venture out. You could tell all who the drug dealers were when they showed up on per cap day, because they'd roll in with Mercedes and BMWs or cars with rims, and it was just like it was a scary time in the community, and something had to change. And so like having all these experiences and information to draw from, I was praying for my community every single day. I would go put my tobacco down by a tree, and I was like and I every day I remember at the beginning it felt like I was just going through the motions of prayer, but I did it every day because I was told, if you want to stay in recovery, this is what you have to. So I go put my tobacco down, and I'm praying for my community every day, like, Creator, help our community, and then and so like so during that time there wasn't a whole lot of engagement between Health and Human Services and the community. There seems to be a disconnect between providers and community members. And so one of the sayings that I love to say is either you have a seat at the table or you're on someone's menu. So when they started rolling out the MAT program here, I would go sit at the board meetings of the medical assisted treatment that they were going to roll out into the community, and I would represent my voice about being in recovery, and that was so key to community buy-in later on. So like so bringing community members into discussions and letting community members have seats at the table gave them the exposure to witness firsthand what we're dealing with. Like people, to see firsthand people, sick or withdrawing or hurting, and seeing our relatives in that situation, and wanting to help them, and being exposed to that type of environment gave me a different understanding right from the get. And so I started talking with all the nurses and the doctors and everybody that was running this program to help educate me to understand what's happening here. How is this going to benefit? How is this helping our community? And I would take that information with me, and then I would bring that to the community. And so a doctor can say one thing to a community member, but if I say the exact same thing to a community member, they're gonna feel differently about it. And so having that exposure and talking with the professionals, and then I started getting some education and support. And I apologize for that little tiny blue photo up there, but that's when I went through the Recovery Coach Academy, and I stand fully behind the peer recovery sports specialist training. That is so key to understanding the many different pathways that recovery has. Because I came from an abstinence-based program in the 12 steps, and so like early on, I had different views than I have today. And looking at my community, 100% of my community, I don't just want to help the small subset of people that may be able to do abstinence-based recovery. I want the whole community to heal, not just the ones that not just the ones that want to take that pathway. So going through the peer recovery sports specialist training really opened my eyes to understanding and gave me the tools to motivational interviewing, cultural competency, in the many different pathways, and how to bring resources and advocate, and how much language matters when you're discussing topics. And so like the peer recovery sports specialist training, or the recovery coach training, or whatever your state calls it, that is so pivotal to community or whoever understanding, shifting from that abstinence-based perception to encompassing all the many pathways, whether it's MAT, whether it's cultural, whether it's church, whether it's therapy, whether it's 12 steps, whether it's smart recovery, whether it's celebrate recovery, or whether it's work, or whether, you know what I mean, or what, there's just so many different pathways, and learning about them, and taking my influences and biases out of the situation, and empowering people to let them be the driver of their own life, and whatever that looks like for them. And so the peer recovery sports specialist training was so pivotal to the work that came later on. And so I went through that. And then just recently I went through the recovery coach harm reduction pathway, train-to-trainer curriculum. So that gave me a deeper understanding of the harm reduction approach. And I believe that everything starts at harm reduction. So I may have come from an abstinence-based program, but dealing with my community, and I just didn't want my people to die anymore. I just like my tribe, my people are dying, and so one of the sayings that keeps coming to me over and over again over the past 4.5 years is that it takes a village to raise a child. You know what I mean? And you've heard that all the time, and we've expanded that to now where it takes a state to raise a village. So like when all these different Sober Squad chapters come together and we do a smudge walk in a community, we're showing that community what recovery looks like. And when you see hundreds of shenabs in recovery yelling Sober Squad or talking about recovery and doing fun stuff, and you know what I mean, that reminds me of Roger Bannister. So Roger Bannister was an athlete, a runner in 1954. So they believed it scientifically impossible for the human body to run a mile in 4 minutes. They just said it's not physically possible, and science proved that it's not possible, and this and that. And then in 1954, Roger Bannister did it. And the crazy thing about that was every single athlete that year did it too. So once they knew that it was possible and they could do it, then everybody else did it. And so when we come together with Sober Squad, and we do smudge walks and march through communities and everything like that, that is showing people you can run a 4-minute mile. And so like it takes a village to raise a child, and so like I had all my elder mentors early on and stuff like that, and so having a seat at the table and having representation is so pivotal to the community because of the social norms and the cultural lens that I see when I'm talking. And so like having a seat at table at the board meetings is so pivotal, and because all advocacy is at the core is an exercise of empathy, and I love that saying. I love and so like so like having representation and community members connect with health and human services or professionals, and peer support can definitely be that connection between community and providers, you know. So that way, and because I'll get into it later, but advocating for services is a key component to the training of the peer recovery sports specialist training. So then another thing that I started doing early on was I started using social media. I wanted to send a beacon as loud as I can, because in today's age everything's on social media, and everything you hear about in 12-step programs and everything, they use this word anonymity, and so like when you are struggling or you're in that moment, you don't know who you could talk to in the community. You don't know who you can reach out to. You don't know like who's out there, if you're going to be alone, if you're going to do this, and you know, and so like there wasn't a whole lot of advertising out there about recovery and advocacy. There wasn't a whole lot of that going on at the time in 2016. And so when I started the journey in recovery, I was like, I don't want to be anonymous. I want everybody to see this journey and to see that I wanted to be the Roger Bannister of my community here. And so like I started posting everything that I was doing, showing about all the access points to AA meetings, NA meetings, Wellbriety, Sweat Lodge, ceremonies, powwow, whatever it is. I just wanted to show people what recovery looks like, and just advocating for all of these different things to help change the social norms that are and the stigma that's around addiction, because there's a lot of stigma, and people don't know. A lot of people are uneducated about what an addict looks like, or that stigma language. But what you know what I mean? Like when you use that word, what does recovery look like? You know, and me 4.5 years in, I'm a grant writer. I pay my bills. I own a house. I own my car, I have a driver's license, I got a job, you know what I mean? Like start showing people that what recovery looks like. It's not just sitting in a church basement going to a meeting. It's so much more than that. It's being a father. There's just so much that recovery entails, and I wanted people to see that, you know. And so like I started using social media to talk about all this different stuff, and not only that, but to celebrate the successes of people, like, you know, and to show everybody, and to honor the people that are on this journey, and you're doing a good job, and so like and so like you don't have to be ashamed to be in recovery. You don't have to and I like that saying at the bottom there, to show that recovery just doesn't happen in a church basement. So these are some things that some photos of early on in my journey. I think I'm like 5 months into the journey here, and it was still just me and a bunch of elders still around this time. But then as we started to grow and people started reaching out and seeing what was going on, Sober Squad started growing. Like I remember that the 3 meetings that I was hosting a week, you know, nobody would show up. Then after a year of doing it, then one person showed up and stayed. Then another person showed up and stayed. Then another, and then another, and then another, and then another. And pretty soon, what used to be, you know what I mean, just one person, and groups started growing. The meeting turnout, the support group started to just grow and grow and grow and grow. And once we started getting pretty big, and on the reservation here, ideas started rolling about how we can help the community. And I remember there was a little epiphany that we had sitting in a support group one night, where there was this like, I'm sitting praying to help my community, and who is the one answering the prayers? It's the other people in recovery. Started coming into the community, coming into the reservation. Outside people started coming into the reservation at night. Like, who does that? You know, especially with no cops. Like, there was, and so we started setting up we called it Per Cap Patrol. On the first Thursday of every month, when people would get their check, and gang members and everybody would just sit out in the parking lot. There's a picture on the left there where we set up a table and we started handing out information. We started handing out clean needles. We started handing out information about where to get an assessment. Started educating the community on Stevens Law, like where like you won't go to jail if you call 911. And all of started educating the community, and I knew that I didn't want to take the we knew that we didn't want to take the aggressive approach that they were doing down in the cities. So we just sat right next to the drug dealers and handed out information and handed out clean needles and handed out Narcan, and was just really just happy. That energy was just happy, and it just like wasn't standing there confronting the drug dealers. It was just like, hey man, here, take some Narcan with you. If you know anybody that needs, whatever, just have them reach out and do this. And then we're doing this as a community members. Like we weren't paid professionals. We weren't doing any of this stuff. Like we were just set up and trying to help the community because it was dire. There was some dire circumstances, and so we set up every first Thursday of every month, and we would sometimes we would hand out pizza or grill hot dogs and hamburgers and just hand them out to people and be like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, we're out here, Sober Squad, and we're drug free. And just advocating for a healthier lifestyle. And we started doing smudge walks. On the bottom left there, you could see that was one of our first smudge walks when we had a smaller group. And we started, marching through the community, burning the medicine and sage, and showing people, like, hey, recovery. There's a lot of us in recovery here in this community, and so you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be ashamed, and it's like you're not going to be alone to be ridiculed and teased for wanting a better life. And we started participating in all these different parades, local community, like from cities that are close to the reservation here. We started doing parades and all these, hopping in these parades and handing out stuff and singing and dancing and trying to break that myth of the drunk Indian, or that Mille Lacs is bad, or the reservation is bad, and it's just not a good place. And then you see a bunch of sober natives walking through on a parade, all happy, handing out shirts and candy, wearing Sober Squad shirts that sent a different message, and started building them connections, and we started speaking out at all these different areas, and just really advocating, having a public presence. And then we started the Sober Squad Facebook page, to where we could just share all the data that we had, or information that we had, or events that were coming ahead, just throw it all on there, and then advocate at that, and then and show the education we were getting, the support groups, and people could reach out on there if they wanted transportation to a meeting, where cultural events were going, and started banding together and changing the social norms in the community. Just a bunch of people in recovery, just with no cops around, and so that's so advocacy is a fundamental component. And here we are. We started. Mille Lacs really started helping us out, and other organizations started seeing what we were doing and helping us buy shirts, helping us buy coats. And we started going to different organizations to do presentations on the work that we were doing in the community. And that was the next smudge walk up on the top right there. That was one of the second smudge walks we did. So like the smudge walk started growing, and people in the community started really taking to the message that we had, and we started using this hashtag called "This is what recovery looks like." When we post these smudge walks, or giving presentations and doing all this exciting stuff, and going to ceremony or whatever it is, we would just make sure we use that hashtag, "This is what recovery looks like," just to show people that like the journey is not scary, and it's not difficult, and you don't have to be alone, and so like one of the things that I believe is that you cannot solve a problem trimming around the edges, you know. So like I believe that real connection with people actually starts at harm reduction. You know, like there was people, I remember the first time I handed out some needles, I was really super sad just because my abstinence-based way that I come into recovery contradicted what I was doing, and I felt really sad just because I was an IV user myself. So, but I have so much compassion for the people that are my community members, and I wanted to help them no matter what that looked like. And so started with the harm reduction, and there was 2 people that was always asking me for syringes. And I remember I would give them hugs every time I would give them, because my heart would kind of get sad every time they would ask me, and I would give them, you know what I mean, some clean syringes and Narcan, and I would give them a hug, and I'd be like, man, take care of yourself, okay, you know what I mean, and you could just see on their face how much that meant. You know, there wasn't no judgment, there wasn't no stigma, there wasn't anything like that. It was just like, hey, take care of yourself. And this is somebody that comes from that's in recovery, you know. And so like I remember I did that for about 8 months to these 2 people, and then eventually when them 2 people wanted help, they reached out to me, and they're still in Sober Squad today, you know, and we helped them get into detox, and you know, but it started with that connection with harm reduction. And then out in the community doing these smudge walks and doing some outreach, and there's a picture on the bottom right of us down in that homeless encampment down that was going on, the Wall of Forgotten Natives down in Minneapolis during that time. We would go down there, and we'd bring food and Narcan and all this different stuff, and we started going around to all these different Native treatment centers in Minnesota, or any treatment centers for that matter, and start talking, sharing our personal experience and everything. And we created this big, long master list of speakers. And then when people would reach out to us for speakers, we'd just go down the line, and we'd just like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean, and have all these different people speaking all over. And so this system started to form, like this engine started to get greased. And so here we are, advocating, posting all over social media about recovery's fun. We're going to support groups. We're going to ceremony. We're doing all kinds of fellowship. We're having all kinds of fun. We're doing smudge walks. We're going to bowling. We're going to Pizza Hut every Friday night. We're speaking at all these different treatment centers. We just kept posting everything we were doing, and people started to reach out to us for help. You know, they didn't, and making it safe. You know, and we're just a grassroots group of people that wanted to make a difference when there was no cops around and nothing out there like that, you know what I mean. Something had to give, and so it started. So like this system that created, people would reach out to us. So then we started this group chat to help get organized about transportation needs. And so everybody with a car that was in Sober Squad was in there, plus anybody that might need a ride was in there. And so that way, when somebody reached out, I would throw it in that group chat, like so-and-so needs to ride to detox, so-and-so needs to ride to treatment, so-and-so needs this, can anybody volunteer and help out? And that way you had a whole group of people that were just willing to give back and wanting to see the community in a better place, that every single time that call was answered. And so like I think that real peer support or recovery or the glue, Sober Squad is the glue that ties all of these programs together. So it starts from the moment they want to see if they got insurance or they want to go to detox. You know, I sat with a lot of people at the ER for them to get a bed into detox. I sat there for 5 hours, and the 2 people where I stayed that whole 5 hours are still in Sober Squad in recovery today. But the 3 people where like I was tired and I had to leave, and I'm just, you know what I mean, like, and I remember leaving, I was like, okay, just tell the nurse that you want to go to detox, and you know, you got this. And I remember I left, went home, went to sleep, because I have kids and I have, you know, and they ended up leaving, or they'll go to detox and then they'll leave, or for whatever reason they never followed through with it, because there's no, making the decision to change is so scary. And when people are in them moments, they need a lot of support. And who better to support than somebody that's actually done it and that's been through it, you know. And so like when we bring people to detox, we're advocating for them, and we're telling them like, hey, this is the best decision that you've ever made, you know. Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. I've done this, This is good. You're doing this. And then, so we'd bring them to detox. After they get out of detox, we'll help them get them an assessment while they're there. Then we'd pick them up at detox and then bring them to treatment where they're at. And if they live close, we would go and visit them. Like I would go and visit people at where if I brought them to treatment, or whoever brought them to treatment, we would go visit them where they were at, and forming that connection. So that way, when they leave inpatient treatment, and then they go to a halfway house or whatever like that, and they come back into the community, they are already familiar with us. That's in a community that's doing all this stuff. And when they come back in, we plug them right back in. And what used to be 3 nights a week, meetings, support groups 3 nights a week, now in Mille Lacs here, there's a support group every single night of the week, sometimes even 2, plus ceremonies, plus sweat lodge, and plus whatever, plus events, and plus, all these different things that people are doing. And I don't have to do any of that. All these other people are stepping up and taking care of that and into these roles. And one of the beautiful things about with the Native communities is that when the gratitude of the community buying in, grandmas and aunts and moms started cooking for our support groups that we would have, for our well-variety meetings or for our sweat lodge or whatever. Community members just really liked what we did for their family members, and they want to give back, so they started cooking for us for our meetings. And so that's why you see how I'm kind of but anyways, and it was just beautiful exchange. And so Sober Squad, that peer support, ended up being the glue that tied this individuals from the beginning of their journey, no matter what stages they were going, back into the community, back into a healing forest that'll put them in the middle of the herd, and so like and for people, one of the things about that shifted my views about MAT was my exposure to it, like and witnessing firsthand what my relatives were going through and how bad they were struggling, and everything that they were experiencing, and I want 100% of my community to get better and to get healthy, not just the 2 or 5% that want to do abstinence based, you know what I mean? And I want 100% of my community to get better, and to do that, I had to learn all these different pathways, and I had to be exposed to all these different viewpoints, and to see firsthand, what opiates was doing to my community. Like, and I remember I buried my uncle, I buried 3 of my cousins, and my first cousins, and that shifted my perspective of, okay, I just don't want people dying. I just don't want my family dying. I just don't want my community dying. And so like that exposure and helping and the training of the peer support really tied into a lot of different things. And so there's why do we do it? And this is down at the state capitol. Every year down in Minneapolis, they have this big event, and it's the Minnesota Walk for Recovery. And this is people with all kinds of substance use disorders coming together and to show everybody what recovery looks like. And with a strange thing, the beautiful thing about it is this is an event of thousands and thousands of people in recovery. And one of the beautiful things about Sober Squad was 1 year, Sober Squad set the record for having the largest team and bringing in the most donations. And I remember our organization helped us buy shirts, and we helped us get a bus, and we all met up in Mille Lacs and then drove down there, and we had this big bus full of people, and we set records down there for the state for having the largest recovery group and bringing in the most donations. And we hopped out, we had our hand drums, we bought a big drum, we were handing out shirts, and we just went down there, and we just, like, here we are, a bunch of natives from reservations showing up, just the biggest group there. We were the loudest, we were yelling Sober Squad, and it was a beautiful thing to see, because the first 11 members of Sober Squad are all IV users. We were all IV users at one point in our life, and statistically speaking, we're not supposed to be alive. You know what I mean? Like, we're like I know the statistics. They say that IV users have the lowest chance of recovery, and that basically you're gonna keep using until you die. And so the statistics and data just went out the window with what's going on, especially in hostile recovery environments like what was happening in Mille Lacs. People coming together and supporting one another, and with the education and training and support and community buy-in and everything, it was just like it just started working. And there's that top right picture up there, then two men sitting behind me. One is my nephew's dad. He's my with the hat. His name was Mike Day. And then that person sitting behind me is my first cousin, Fabian. And both of them brothers, both of my relatives right there, overdosed and died. You know, and that's a powerful picture for me. That's a reminder of why I want to give back. You know, like why this is important. And even though I'm not like a LADC and I'm not doing this, I'm just a passionate person that cares about my community, and so like so that picture means a lot. And my nephew's dad there, when he passed away, my sister is still struggling with substance use disorder, and so I have custody of their 13-year-old kid. Oh, he's 15 now. I had him for 2 years. Holy crazy. Anyways, so and he looks just like him, and that's changing the narrative for the I don't know how to explain this, the not passing down that trauma or changing that bloodline or what it means, and so like this is powerful stuff, and that's a lot of why we do it. These are our relatives. These are I don't like the word client or patient or peer or whatever like that. I like the word relative. You know, like I view everybody as my relative. You know, like when I'm out there doing harm reduction or whenever I'm doing this or doing this, I refer to them as my relative. You know, and it keeps me in the mind frame and perspective that I need to be in to continue to do this. And I wish Gary was here because he's got a very passionate component to talk about his viewpoint and what's going on here. And and some of the successes that I've seen with people, I'll get into it later about MAT. But this is up on the top right there. There's a picture of me and Gary with Gabor Mate. And that was a Sober Squad event that we had on the bottom right corner. And one of the beautiful things that I've heard Gabor Mate say, he heard it from a different reporter, Ohan Ahari, where he said the opposite of addiction is connection. Opposite of addiction is not it is not sobriety, or it is not this. It's connection. And so forming that connection, and the longer that I'm in recovery, the more that saying makes sense. And I'm always going to take that with me. And Gary uses that a lot. And that bottom right corner, the bottom right photo is a Sober Squad event that we had, where just like I couldn't believe, just like almost all these reservations coming, all these different Sober Squads coming together from other reservations and other Sober Squad city places and coming together, and there's events that we had that started growing, and that was a picture of on that left there. That's us going to California the second time, I think. And this was Randy when I first met him. He reached out, and I wish you guys could see this guy today. I wish he was really here, but he's not feeling too well right now. But he's got a very beautiful component to when he speaks about it too, and so this was kind of like what a lot of us look like when we first come in, and I asked permission for all the photos you see in here. There's permission for all of these, and so one of the things that Randy talks about was finding himself, and he found himself through culture. Like I remember there was a Wellbriety group that day. He reached out to me before lunchtime. I'm at work. He reached out to me. He said something, and I'm like, well, what are you doing? And I asked him what he's doing. He said he's just sitting there. So I was like, okay, I'll be over on my lunch to come check you out. And I seen him, and he just looked how, and then photos, and I was like, are you hungry, bro? I'll go get you something to eat. And he hopped in the car. I went and got him something to eat. And he was talking about, this was his day one of recovery. He was having a hard time, and he was withdrawing, and he was just in a really bad place. I brought him to the store, got him something to eat, and I dropped him off at home. And I was like, I'll come pick you up tonight after I get off work, and we'll go to Wellbriety group. And he was like, okay. And I remember when I left thinking, he's probably not going to make it. He's going to start ignoring my calls. He's going to stop texting to me. He's just going to, you know, like, because I've tried to help a lot of people, that's usually the result. So when he kept responding throughout the day, I kept talking to him, trying to form that connection. So finally at 5 o'clock when I went and picked him up, and we went to Wellbriety early, we went to Wellbriety like an hour early and just helped setting up, and we had the drum there. And so we just kind of started jamming out before the group. And I remember a couple other people showed up singing, and we were singing, and I remember looking at him during one of the songs, and he had tears coming down his eyes. And I didn't think nothing of it at the time. I was just like, man. But when I heard his story, he grew up around the drum. He said when he was little, he used to drum and sing and everything like that. But when he was around 10 or 11 or 12, I can't remember when it was, he started getting into trouble, and he drifted away from the drum. So when he came back to it, and we were drumming and singing or whatever like that, that sparked something in him, that formed that connection with him, and something there, and it was so profound a moment for him that he just started crying, and I didn't think nothing of it at the time, but like that to me that's moving, that I got to witness that, and it's so rewarding. And he became a sweat hog, started going to a lot of sweats and singing, and now he sings all over the place, man, and he's come a long way just in a few years. And the biggest thing that I kind of want to talk about is support. When I witnessed the stigma of my relatives that are on MAT or may have other pathways of recovery that are different than some others or whatever like that, I seen the stigma and the ridicule and the teasing and everything that was going on with people that and that and that bothered me, you know, and so like I said, I want 100% of my community to get better, and so one of the philosophies, one of the beautiful things about Sober Squad is it's not one pathway. It's many different pathways coming together. And so what happened now with was that all these different pathways of recovery coming together for events and sharing support and getting to know one another, this weird little hybrid system of recovery started happening, because we're sharing information from this pathway and this pathway and this pathway and this pathway, and then somebody will come in and share about the spiritual component, or somebody will come in and share about the you know what I mean, the educational component or therapeutic component plus the AA component, and we're all sharing this knowledge and everything like that this recovery started to get strong. And these were some photos. That middle photo on the bottom was one of the meetings we had here in Mille Lacs. And Mille Lacs is not that big of a reservation, and so like witnessing community turnout like this of people in recovery that started getting 60 days, 90 days, you know, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, you know, it just watching this unfold before my very eyes. And it's just, this story has to be told about these individuals and everything, their journey. And so, and we started hosting events like Christmas events or 4th of July events or you know, like whatever kind of holiday, we would just like set up at people's houses and come together as a community, as a family, and it's beautiful. And we respect everybody, like everybody's pathways, no matter what it is or anything like that, you know what I mean? You always have a home here with Sober Squad, with us, you know, like whatever your journey of recovery looks like, and it's all about support. It's all about love and compassion, and if your journey is different than mine, that's okay, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we need each other, so like these philosophies and watching these people support each other is so rewarding, and it's happening on reservations. Like reservations are already primed because we're so communal already. So all it just needs is that little spark, and this thing will just ignite. Like it's just and because we as Anishinabeg people are blessed. We as you know what I mean, indigenous people are very blessed, and we're already communal, and so like it's beautiful. And so like reservations are just primed. And so when all of a sudden, I remember Randy, he was saying that he was scared and insecure about his recovery early on. He was afraid to tell his friends and his old buddies and everything like that he was a part of Sober Squad now, or that he was doing this. But man, when he said, I remember him telling us, when he tells his story, he said he was sitting in a meeting with old-timers, and he said, you know what, I'm not afraid of you guys anymore. I'm not afraid of anybody or what they, you know what I mean? And when that became the case, he's just this powerful speaker, and he's out there and he's just advocating. And that was the picture in the center there was one of his first speaking engagements, and it was about an hour away, and a group of us, we all drove, you know, an hour to go support him and listen to him. There's not even a picture of the community there, but there was a lot of other community members there. This is just the Sober Squad members that just drove that way to go support him in his journey. And it's all about support, you know, and everybody needs it, no matter what pathway, whether it's MAT or cultural, or you know what I mean, like just everybody, it's all about support, you know. And so when he said, I'm not afraid, he just became this thunderbolt, this thunderbolt all across the recovery community, because he's such a powerful speaker. And when he said that, his journey definitely amped up a notch. And so this was the Friday night Pizza Hut thing that we would do every Friday night. I remember when it started, there was like 2 or 3 of us every Friday would go have pizza, and then we would all split the bill. And pretty soon this Friday night Pizza Hut gig just kept growing and growing and growing. We'd go to a meeting first, like other people went to other meetings, or other people didn't go to meetings, but then we'd all meet up every Friday to go to Pizza Hut and eat and have fellowship and joke and share, you know, break bread. And on that bottom left photo there, there's a picture of Randy in early recovery there in the middle of and then there's Gary back there with the yellow in Arvid. And so like this thing, the Friday night Pizza Hut gig became like an awesome thing, to where like everybody's just coming together and supporting, and there's so much laughter that happens on, and fellowship and fun. It's just so much fun. Recovery isn't just all you know, work and crying and tears and this and that, you know what I mean? There's just, you know, there's a lot of fun to it, and we do a lot of fun things as a group and offer support and plug into that community. And this is happening in hostile environments where there's, you know, like where, you know, where there was, and this is some community engagement stuff that we did. That top right was a 4th of July. We had a barbecue on the res at Randy's house there. We just had a little 4th of July barbecue, and we bought a lot of fireworks there, you know, that night, whatever. And those were powwows. We would go set up at powwows and set up a tent and just kind of have a Sober Squad flag just hanging there, and other people in recovery from all over the country would come and be like, cool, you know what I mean? Like, it's awesome, because powwows they can trigger a lot of people. And so when you see a group of people posted up that are in recovery, you know what I mean? Like that means a lot. That means it's safe, you know, like it's like you don't have to be alone when you go through this. So community engagement started stepping up. And one of the sayings that we say, or philosophies I've heard people say, it's none of my business how people choose to manage their addiction. You know, like it's the energy or intent you put when we come together. You know what I mean? And that non-judgmental, caring and compassionate philosophy, I think that's part of the draw of Sober Squad. You know what I mean? Like it's none of our business how you manage your recovery or which pathway you choose for you and your journey and your recovery. You know what I mean? And so like people that were, if you're on MAT, so what? That's how you, maybe that's how you manage your addiction. You know what I mean? And let's go to Pizza Hut. Let's go to this meeting. Let's go to the movies. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like and everybody needs that compassion and that support. And so that photo on the left, I think, was when that year we set the record for the largest turnout at this one of the largest recovery event in the state. And Sober Squad, a bunch of greasy Indians showed up with their drums. Oh, I'm kidding. That video is not gonna play, but there was a video there that showed a smudge walk that we did. It was one of our largest smudge walks that we did when we marched through one of the local, the Brainerd Sober Squad chapter, which is a city 30 miles away. It was one of our largest smudge walks we did, and it wasn't on a reservation. It was in a city. So, and this isn't just this, like, Sober Squad isn't just a native thing or whatever. You know, it isn't strictly for natives. There's non-native chapters, and this Brainerd one was one where we showed up at and stuff like that. And I really wish I could play that video, but it's not showing. But this that photo there was one of the uh-oh, somebody's doing something. Can you hear it? Is there volume on there? Can you?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I can get the...
Yeah, but that's when we all got in a circle, and we held hands, and you could see all the different Sober Squad chapters holding their signs. There was Red Lake Sober Squad, you know, Leech Lake Sober Squad, Fond du Lac Sober Squad, White Earth Sober Squad, you know, Mille Lacs Sober Squad, Brainerd Sober Squad, all these different Sober Squad chapters coming together. And we were in that video. We were all yelling "Sober Squad," and one person would yell "Sober," and then everybody would yell "Squad," and they just did that for a little while, and it's pretty cool and it's fun, and so let's see what else I got coming on here. Oh, I thought I added a couple of slides, but there was. There was
I think that might be...
one of the things.
I was just going to say, I think that might be the last slide in the PowerPoint. Just considering the time, would you be able to take a few questions, Colin?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that participants will be able to use the audio, but if you do have a question, please just drop it in the chat. And actually, if you don't mind, I want to start with one of my own. I think you said earlier that it took a year to get going before you got a consistent group of members, some members that would show up again and again. Can you tell us more about that year? What was that year like, where you were, I think in essence, mostly on your own or with elders?
It was, so I had, during that time, I was so lonely. Like, I waited a year to get into a relationship or do anything like that, to work on myself. So my normal coping mechanism with loneliness was was codependency. So not having my normal way of dealing with stuff, plus I was insecure and lonely, and I just wanted somebody to hang out with, to go have fun with. Like I was so lonely, and I had so much passion because I hated what was happening in my community. And so I had a lot of older mentors during that time that were teaching me about the culture, and so and taking me through the 12 steps. And I don't think I had the knowledge or experience until I was around a year clean to actually start helping somebody else. So I had a lot of stuff and so there was a lot of internal stuff I had to work through, and frustrations, and like little stuff like, oh, I didn't get that job, oh, blah blah blah, you know what I mean? Like I had to learn to cope with a lot of different stuff, and finally I think what happened was like they talk about in recovery is when you hit that pink cloud. It took me a little while to hit that pink cloud, but when I hit it, that gave me I think that's what attracted a lot of people was the non-judgmental pink cloud, happy, just eager to be of service and to serve the Creator, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. It does look like we're getting some questions from the chat. Lynn and Shirley ask, what's the process for developing a chapter, and how would a tribe from across the country replicate what you've done with Sober Squad?
What I've seen best is what I've seen work is where we come to and give a presentation. Me and Gary and Randy and some women come and give presentations about our experience and how we did it, to kind of inspire and ignite the people that are on the reservations. And today I do a lot of peer support training. I've hosted us as Sober Squad has hosted a lot of peer recovery support specialist trainings, and trained, you know what I mean, like, a lot of people, to help give them the tools to deal, you know what I mean, like to not make it about themselves, the many different pathways, and cultural competency and motivational interviewing, and so like the biggest thing I would probably start with is the finding community members with a year or two of sobriety, and give them that peer recovery support specialist training, and have them connect with us, and we'll kind of, you know what I mean, we'll throw them into group chats. So every chapter has a group chat, and plug in there, and we have one main group chat that we share ideas and experiences, and we take turns with the presentations and stuff like that. Like there's 3 people that are doing MAIDs this year, and so we're sharing the workload and giving other people experience to give presentations and stuff like that. So like so and I'm gonna just want to sneak this in there. Everybody that started a successful Sober Squad chapter here in Minnesota and Wisconsin and North Dakota, South Dakota, and Oklahoma and Arizona or whatever, everybody that started a successful Sober Squad chapter, they go on and they do this amazing stuff, and they get really good careers, and it's awesome to watch them blossom. Like this really helps them, give them the understanding. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure that the face-to-face presentations have slowed down a little bit over the past few months, given the quarantine and the social distancing. But thanks for that.
I got one. Yeah, we're going to back to the LCO in Wisconsin tribe, and we're going to give a social distancing campfire presentation kind of thing this Friday and Saturday.
Okay, it looks like Pam asked, what are your thoughts about someone who is participating in MAT and how they can benefit from participating in sweats?
So I've talked to my mentors about that, and one of the things they continuously say is it's all about intention. You know, like your intention matters a lot. You know, like what is your intention between wanting to go through sweat, and it doesn't matter so much about you know, like the other stuff. It's just like, you know, what is your intention? And so and I've heard that from a couple different of my mentors. Like at the end of the day, it boils down to intention. And I really hate to throw this out there in this context, but like how people manage their addiction is really none of anybody else's business, you know.
Pam, does that answer your question?
And one of my mentors, like this isn't like evidence-based practice or anything like that. She's a ethnobotanist. So, and she talked about using, for people with withdrawal, using dandelion root, yellow, and burdock root. And if they have anxiety, give them vervain, valerian, and skullcap.
And it looks like a number of people have asked if you could share your contact information.
I could put it in a, if you're going to call me, text first, like I'll put my information in there. There's my number, and I'll put my email. And then I would encourage anybody on here to add the Sober Squad Facebook page. There's all kinds of other Sober Squad, like there's Arizona Facebook page, Oklahoma Sober Squad page, Red Lake. You know, every chapter has their own Facebook page to put out information and to help advocate for providers and you know, like events that they're doing. But there's one main page.
It looks like there's only one other question that I see, and it is, who gave you the inspiration to develop the Sober Squad? Was it one person, or a few, or a group, or a tribe?
A lot of trial and error. So like I said, that first year of helping people, I thought the only tool I had was a hammer, so everything looked like a nail. But over just helping in the community, trying to find traction, what works, over that first year, finally something started to form, philosophy started to emerge. But like I was saying in the earlier of the presentations, right, there's some, this is where a lot of inspiration came from. American Indian movement, the story of Alkali Lake, being out in Standing Rock, Natives Against Heroin, and Alcoholics Anonymous, and then the peer recovery sports specialist training. And like I want to say, like, it's just, this isn't, this is going to sound crazy, it's not rocket science. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science. Like these little recovery communities have been going on since the inception of like AA, but they've never broke out of the rooms or underneath the church basement, and they've never worked together like what was created with Sober Squad. And so we just threw all windows out the window, or threw all rules and anonymity out the window, and just what's working, and took a lot of backlash from a lot of old timers and stuff like that. But you know, you can't argue with the results. And bringing community members in on discussions, I think, is a good way to bridge the gap between providers and the community. So like me sitting on the MAT board when I was abstinence-based, I guess, was really helped my understanding, and having that exposure and talking to doctors and nurses and you know what I mean, some of the difficulties they had, gave me a better understanding to help me be more acceptable of you know.
Okay, if that's the last question that we have, do you have any closing thoughts, Colin or Shirley?
I just wanted to say, like, I fasted and didn't drink water for 4 days, and so like I'm not 100%. My body isn't 100% yet. So like you know, I apologize if it wasn't you know, like that oomph that I normally give. But you know, but you know, like, I think the core of what I wanted to convey is there, and I wanted to say miigwech to Shirley Kane. She's did a lot of trainings with us and helped our women in our group, and she's awesome and she's beautiful, and I appreciate the opportunity, and miigwech to all you guys and helping, and miigwech for helping you know, get the word of Sober Squad out there.
Also, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to say miigwech too to Colin for giving an awesome presentation. When you think you're not doing well, somehow your spirit shines through, you know, and Creator always knows your intentions, and it comes through in your presentation. So I wouldn't even worry about how you did. You did great. And I think, to me, the messaging is how you want to help your community, and not just the Mille Lacs community, but the outside communities as well, because that's what we're all about. We have right now about 160 grants out there, and we have a lot of people that we can potentially touch. And I think this is the beginning of something fantastic and something better. And also, I know you were part of the protectors too, most recently during the protest, and I just say miigwech for that too, you know, because a lot of my relatives, and not just my biological, but my community relatives, were out there protecting and being Ogitchida and Ogitchidakwe, and helping our people the way we always have. So miigwech.
All right. Thank you, Colin and Shirley, and thank you to everyone who attended. I'll be sending out a brief recap, and if you have a few minutes, it would be really helpful if you completed the survey that we have at the end of the presentation.
Is there one more typing, Jeff? Okay. All right. So don't forget the GIPRA, guys. Miigwech. See you later. See you again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.